the Liberals are pretty screwed in this regard. They have to go back to Parliament to get the money to appease Trump to avoid the tariffs, but they won't go back to Parliament because the government will fall.
While the Liberal Party remains in chaos between Trump's inauguration, the tariff threats, and the leadership race, Pierre Poilievre decided to throw one more grenade at the Liberal Liberal Party of Canada, demanding to recall the House. Why would he do that, might you ask? Because Trudeau wants to spend money.
Let's take a look. So Pierre Poilievre released this announcement today on his social media and no doubt sent this to the Prime Minister of Canada for as little as he's going to be there. Anyhow, this is what Pierre said.
Emergency. Reopen Parliament now. Dated January the 21st, 2025 for immediate release. Ottawa, Ontario. The Honourable Pierre Poilievre, leader of the Conservative Party of Canada and the official opposition, released the following statement on the threat of tariffs from the U.S. Quote, Canada is facing a critical challenge. On February 1st, we are facing the risk of unjustified 25% tariffs by our largest trading partner that would have damaging consequences across our country. Our American counterparts say that they want to stop the illegal flow of drugs and other criminal activity at our border. The Liberal government admits their weak border is a problem. That is why they announced a multi-billion-dollar border plan, a plan they cannot fund because they shut down Parliament, preventing MPs and senators from authorizing the funds. We also need retaliatory tariffs, something that requires urgent parliamentary consideration. Yet, Liberals have shut Parliament in the middle of this crisis. Canada has never been so weak, and things have never been so out of control. Liberals are putting themselves and their leadership politics ahead of the country. Freeland and Carney are fighting for power rather than fighting for Canada. Common sense conservatives are calling for Trudeau to reopen Parliament now to pass new border controls, agree on trade retaliation, and prepare a plan to rescue Canada's weak economy. The Prime Minister has the power to ask the Governor-General to cut short prorogation and get our Parliament working. Open Parliament, take back control, put Canada first.
So that was, I'm not going to say it was a long statement, but it wasn't a short statement either. So everybody can kind of read the tea leaves. Pierre wants him to open Parliament. Now, if we look at the logical sentiment in Pierre's demand versus the political sentiment in Pierre's demand, they're obviously different. So the one thing that is important, though, is in December, after Parliament went to recess, Trudeau announced that they were going to be putting forth $1.3 billion towards the border to deal with the demands by Trump to secure the border, to prevent unlawful people from crossing the border, to prevent drugs from coming in, all of this stuff. So they came out and said, we have a $1.3 billion plan. And then, the whole Freeland thing kind of blew up. And that money was never approved. So let's take a quick look at something. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the budget for 2024, Fairness for Every Generation, that was passed back in June of 2024. Why am I showing you this? Well, you don't really need to see the cover page because it's cringe enough. What I do want to show you is this. So this is the index for budget 2024. Why am I showing you this? Well, there's over 300 pages in this budget. The problem with these 300 pages is that they're missing something. What might they be missing, you ask? Well, they're missing the $1.3 billion that Trudeau wants to spend on the border.
So it hasn't been approved because this budget was approved back in June. So that's how they are able to do things like release another $400 million to Ukraine now, even though Parliament's prorogued, because it's already been approved.
Right. So it was already in the budget, allocated to that bucket. But there was no, hey, Trump's coming, run for the hills, and let's have a $1.3 billion just in case emergency fund in case we need it. That's not in the budget, everybody. So here's the thing. When Trudeau says to Trump, oh, don't worry, we have a plan. Well, that's great. You have something on a napkin, but you have nothing to back it up.
And nothing's been approved, right? Nothing's been approved.
So this is actually part of Pierre's argument is you don't have parliamentary approval to actually spend this money. So the only way you can get parliamentary approval to spend this money is to come back to Parliament.
And if you remember, back in December, before they adjourned for the winter break, they kind of dropped the full economic statement and scuttled off. I don't think there was a vote on that either.
Correct. There wasn't, because there would have been a confidence vote and the government would have fallen. So this is the problem that they're in with prorogation, because while the Prime Minister can do certain things, one thing he can't do is he can't spend new money while they're prorogued. You can't do that. And you can't even spend new money while Parliament is dissolved. So this is the issue. And this is where our system of parliamentary supremacy is actually really, really good. The Prime Minister can't just go off and start spending money with reckless abandon unless it's approved by Parliament, and this is not.
Our Prime Minister can't just run off and decide to fund something. I mean, who's to say he wouldn't be able to, like, I don't know, run off and fund some sort of lavish vacation or something like that. Like, that's why we have these guardrails in place that Parliament has to approve anything that is funded by the taxpayers. I don't mean the Prime Minister. I mean all of Parliament, all of the House of Commons. And then when they approve a budget, it goes over to the Senate for review. So all of them review it as well. It's not just one person who can say, oh, I feel like going to Tofino this weekend. Let's have the taxpayers pay for it. No, that guardrail is in place that Parliament has to vote on it, and the majority of Parliament has to agree, and then it goes to the Senate.
The only possible way that they could get around this is if Trudeau asked the heads of these agencies to find a combined $1.3 billion savings in their budgets in order to allocate for this. Guess what they're not going to find?
Not that much money.
$1.3 billion in savings. So yeah, that's not going to happen, folks. But okay, so that's the logical reasons for this. But what are the political reasons? Well, okay, I think everybody understands this by now. You all understand the game. That what Pierre wants is they want to go back to Parliament. And if Trudeau's asking for money to fund this, what type of vote is that going to be? Confidence vote.
It sure is, because it's a money vote.
So that would mean that as soon as Parliament went back, the House would fall, and then you would go to an election, and then it messes everything up. But here's the thing. Pierre knows darn well Justin is not going to recall Parliament. So this is just one more pressure tactic for him to call out the crisis that Trudeau created, and the Liberals for that matter, because they all voted for all of this stuff, as much as they want to deny it, and put more pressure on the fact that he can't do any of this money spending that he wants to do as part of this comprehensive plan because he can't spend it. So this is a lost cause, an absolute lost cause when it comes to trying to appease Trump. So the Liberals are pretty screwed in this regard. They have to go back to Parliament to get the money to appease Trump to avoid the tariffs, but they won't go back to Parliament because the government will fall. And at that point, Trump's probably just going to laugh and then move on and probably not impose the tariffs that he thought he was going to, or that the Liberals thought he was going to put in place anyway. So it's a very interesting chess match. And this is, some people were asking, well, why aren't the Conservatives doing anything? They wait.
It's like a snake in the grass. They wait. They wait until they can strike and be effective.
Right. And then they'll just take a step back and then watch the dust settle, right? So very clever move by the Conservatives and Pierre on this. It's an interesting political one, and It even had the mainstream media talking on CBC about the fact that Trudeau needs a confidence vote in order to spend that money. And so at least CTV brought it up, and they brought up the fact that Pierre was calling for the House to return in order to actually have that vote. So there's your latest political maneuver from the strategist Pierre and his team. No doubt that was a team effort to put that together. But it gets more and more interesting as these chess pieces move along and we get closer and closer to March 24th.